Well, welcome everybody to Socialist Resurgence Connecticut's newest webinar on what next for the movement against police brutality. Everyone has been seeing over the last month now, so actually the 1 month anniversary of the murder of George Floyd by the Minneapolis Police Department and the movement that's come up against it. And everybody's been seeing the kind of power of this incredible mass movement that's taken the streets and cities all over the country and all over the world. In Connecticut, in some places that haven't seen demonstrations maybe ever. And so this is a really inspiring movement and an inspiring moment. And we're excited to bring together a panel of really important activists from around the state to discuss what's going on and what the next steps are. And so without further ado, I'll welcome Alicia Strong from New Haven. I'm sorry, from New Britain, from the New Britain Racial Justice Coalition, who's an activist and a student, as well as an organizer. And take it away, Alicia.
All right, thank you so much, Evan. Thank you for everyone for being here today and having this really important discussion. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the obstacles that I'm facing as an organizer, and I think a lot of us are facing as we start to organize people. So I'm an abolitionist. I support police abolition. I support prison abolition. But in the community that I grew up in New Britain, for the most part, people really don't know what that means or what that could look like. And so as I'm doing my work in New Britain, I've always come up against this obstacle of education. And I think especially for a lot of like leftist groups, this piece gets lost in our organizing. But for me, it's really important that I don't just come in and tell people, okay, this is what we're doing, without really giving them the political education as to why that's important. So talking about the harms that the police and the prisons have caused, and talking about alternative solutions, and really being open and allowing people to ask those difficult questions, because people truly do want to know what happens if there are no police and something gets stolen, or there's a murder, or there's a crime. And so one of the things that I've been focusing on and trying to emphasize is providing people with free and accessible resources as much as possible so that we can do that education. So in New Britain, we're not there yet for sure, but that's really what we've been doing out there.
Thank you, Alicia. I have Addie next from the Citywide Youth Coalition, Inc. From New Haven, who's been organizing really incredible demonstrations and teach-ins in that city. Go ahead.
Good evening. So I'm Addis Castillo with the Citywide Youth Coalition here in New Haven. So I guess to give context to where I'm coming from with this, I would have to say I'd have to own some of my history. I spent 5 years as a youth service officer, or would have been a glorified correctional officer at Long Lane School and the Connecticut Juvenile Training School. So a lot of the work that I do now as far as organizing the change systems comes from a place of retribution, and also recognizing the harm that I did while I was in those particular roles. And as such, I'm really coming to this space new to the abolition work, and new because I never actually considered myself an abolitionist until now, really understanding what that entails for us today. And where we're coming at it from for young people in New Haven is figuring out ways to decriminalize being a young person. It feels like in the city, if you're not being criminalized for being Black or being young, you're being criminalized for being poor. So one of the biggest things that we're noticing is the way that the city spends its money. And thus far, when we were doing our research, since 2012 to now, the city of New Haven has defunded just about every department in the city with the exception of the police department. And right now, the conversation, our young people at Citywide has taken this opportunity to kind of push the envelope and have the conversation about the use of SROs, the school resource officers, and how at this point, what would be the benefit of having them there when we could better spend that money on other services? We have all of these classes that want to be offered at the schools, but we have a serious deficit in the education budget. But yet, even now, as the mayor is responsible for, again, cutting $2 million from the budget, he's choosing to cut that $2 million from the fire department budget, not the police department and not anybody else's budget. So it just goes to show you that this campaign that we're really moving forward on right now it's bigger than just police abolition, but looking at the ways that we are investing in our communities, in defunding the systems that continue to uphold oppression in our communities.
Thanks, Addie. And I'll just remind people that are on attending or watching on Facebook, if you have a question or comment for the panelists, that we're going to have a discussion period after everybody gives their initial thoughts. So just put that in the Q&A or in the chat or on Facebook, and we'll talk about all that stuff then. Next up, I have Dana from the Young Abolitionist Collective. Go ahead, Dana.
Hi, I'm Dana, and I'm a student at UConn, and I'm pretty new to the abolitionist work, but basically what we've been pushing for at UConn is for them to defund the police. We've had several racist incidents on campus over the past year, and the university's response has basically just been to relocate those students rather than punishing them or having any real consequences for the things that they said and did. Yeah, so right now we're pushing for the university to reallocate some of their funds that they use for the police department into mental health services, because we did have multiple suicides on campus over the past year. And, it's something that we've been pushing for a very long time. Multiple students over the years have been pushing for, but the university just doesn't care, or they don't see it as a priority. And so it's been a real struggle as a student to appreciate the things that the university can give us in terms of education, but also to feel like you don't belong and your voice doesn't matter there. So, yeah.
Thanks, Dana. I got Barb Fair next. Barb Fair is a longtime community activist, right now working with Stop Solitary Connecticut, one of the strongest voices in the movement for justice against police brutality and against the worst aspects of the prison system. Really honored to have you, Barb. Go whenever you're ready.
Thank you. When you said I was one of the strongest voices, the first thing I was thinking in my head, yeah, and voice is getting tired, because I've been doing this work for so long. I first got involved with the discussion around abolition, working with a group out of California decades ago called Critical Resistance, and worked with Ruthie Gilmore, who's from New Haven, who's a longtime abolitionist. And I actually worked with some Yale students around that time to get some of that work done in New Haven. And then when the students left, the group kind of fell apart because they were really the strength of the group. So I really haven't thought about abolitionists since then. It's mainly, and so I went into reform work for the last 30 years. And at this point, I'm recognizing that reform is not going to do it. We have to dismantle these systems. And if you're not talking dismantle systems, I'm just not even gonna waste my time with you, because I've done decades of reform, and that's how I came to the conclusion that until we get to the roots of these systems that are deeply, deeply rooted in white supremacy and Black inferiority, if we're not removing those roots, this tree continues to grow, and we can cut as many branches off it that we want to. We still have a tree rooted in white supremacy. And so for me, that's what my work is primarily. And it has to do with criminal justice and prisons. And so one of the things that we're really looking to do with Stop Solitary is, as we continue to push for police accountability, which that's where the nation's push is now. And so legislators are willing to at least have a discussion around that, some serious discussion. But I want to make sure that we don't lose ground on the accountability we also want to see from people on inside, because when you say Black Lives Matter, they matter not only on the street, but they also matter behind bars where nobody even knows what's going on. So, and I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Barb. I have Matt next from Socialist Resurgence Connecticut. Matt's organizer coming from the University of Connecticut, just graduated. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just start with a prepared statement. It might be a little bit long, sorry, but so today marks a month since the murder of George Floyd by the police in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In that month, BLM has exploded into a global movement with a diverse set of demands and tactics being employed by organizers the world over. The demands of the movement have expanded from jailing killer cops to defunding police as a whole, increasing funding for social services, and at its left wing, abolishing capitalist police, prisons, and even ICE. Within CT, we have seen organizations such as Justice for Jason win demands for police demilitarization in Bridgeport. Black America Undivided present a demand set which calls for complete police defunding within 3 years and a series of steps to strengthen the Black community in Hartford. Everywhere we are seeing acts of solidarity, bolder and more complete demands being put forward. In short, we are likely coming up to the question of where to go next and how to arrive there. To what extent must society change so that Black lives matter and Black people are free? SR's view is that the United States, as a settler, colonial, capitalist power, will not be able to reform away the deep structural violence built into its system. To meet the central premise of Black Lives Matter and deliver legitimate and complete change to and for all Black people, a new structure must be built out of the shell of the old. In short, SR seeks not only police abolition, but the abolition of the production system, capitalism, which requires a repressive force like the police to exist in the first place. To fully accomplish police abolition and end the need for a repressive force, we must create a system where we feed the hungry, house the homeless, care for the sick, and commit to reparations for Black Americans. Programmatically, this means Black control over Black communities, Black workers controlling their workplaces, unions with Black caucuses that actually have power, an economy built off meeting human needs rather than corporate greed. For this to occur, the movement must become an independent political organization. We are seeing that while establishment Democrats may share some rhetorical phrases with the movement, they seek to co-opt and defang it. If we call for abolition and all that it entails, they reply with minor budget cuts. If we call for defunding alone, they reply with more training, more plainclothes cops, as we have seen on UConn campus, actually. Black Americans hold the movement in their hands, as it should be. And if working class Black people and Black students form an independent party, this would be an achievement so massive and transformative that this country would be unable to go backwards. Rather than plead with two parties who do not serve us, we could work for and with a Black party whose central vision is Black liberation and all that it would entail. And I'll just quickly end with a shortened quote from Revolutionary Socialist and Black Panther member Fred Hampton. We don't think you fight fire with fire best. We think you fight fire with water best. We're going to fight racism, not with racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity. We say we're not going to fight capitalism with Black capitalism, but we're going to fight it with socialism. We're going to fight their reactions with all of us people getting together and having an international proletarian revolution. That's my statement.
Thanks, Matt. Keren, are you ready?
Yeah, I can get started. I mean, I'm outside, so there's cars honking, so I don't know if that's going to interfere. I don't know if you can hear me.
We love that you're dedicated both to spreading the message online and to keeping the movement going. So this is Keren Prescott from Power Up Connecticut and Power Up Manchester, been organizing regular demonstrations every day in Manchester and a bunch of other stuff that I really hope she talks about.
Yes. Yeah, so we're out here. We have decided to be out here every day. The boycott in Montgomery went 381 days. So the very first day that we started, we decided we're going 391 days. That was very, very strategic. And anybody that has been following me, I told them that systemic racism didn't just happen. It was very strategic. And so when you're out here trying to dismantle, destroy, and tear down this corrupt, evil system, you have to be very organized. You have to be very strategic about what you're planning to do. And so I used the first time I talked about, you know, what I am trying to do is I use the idea of like a pizza pie, but that's too pretty. A pizza pie is too pretty. And so one of my partners, actually my VP, she came up with the idea of a multi-headed snake because the snake is venomous. And so this multi-headed snake has many different heads, and each head represents a system. And so you have the judicial system, and underneath the judicial system, you have the medical examiner, because we know medical examiners lie. Like the gentleman who had his hands handcuffed behind his back, and somehow they said he was able to get a weapon and shoot himself in the head, and they said it was suicide. I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, sitting behind a squad car with my hands handcuffed behind my back, I'm not going to be able to commit suicide in police custody. And in the event that I am able to do that, the police should still be held accountable, because once I'm in police custody, now you're responsible for my life. So, so that judicial system, you have the medical examiner, you have the DA's office, you have the prison system, you have the police. And so we have this multi-headed snake. And so we're out here. And the biggest thing that protesting does here in Manchester, and I don't know how many people know anything about Manchester, but it once and still is called Clanchester. And we are out here because we have to make people uncomfortable. We have to be out here every day and begin the conversation. And we have to disrupt the peace. And so we are, I don't know if I could turn my camera around. So we're just gonna be out here in front of Olive Garden, Starbucks, Michael's, Taco Bell, Five Below, Trader Joe's, Mobile Gas Station, Home Depot, Hobby Lobby, and people that are just gonna try to enjoy their summer. We're gonna make it a little uncomfortable for them. You don't think you're not gonna just be able to drive by in your drop top Porsche, sit at the light, and think you're gonna be able to listen to your music, and you're not gonna be able to hear my big, black, beautiful mouth. No, you're gonna hear me, you're gonna see me. All those people who say all lives matter, I don't see color, BS, because you see black on black crime. That's the first thing you bring up when you want to talk about just defund the police. And so a lot of people say, well, why don't we just offer training? I had a conversation with my sister, and we said, that's the problem. The training that they're getting is training them to be violent towards people of color. So we know that doesn't work. And the very first thing that a lot of governors and mayors do is they defund every single other organization and department, and yet they will not defund the police. And you don't hear them in an uproar, especially white supremacists. You don't hear them in an uproar about defunding education. Why? Because their kids go to private school. And what do you notice about private school? Those teachers do not have to be certified, so they don't have to take state-governed standardized testing. What do you notice about public schools? They have to take standardized testing. In public schools, kids have to take what? Standardized testing. There's a reason that private schools don't have to do that. They're able to get the best of the best. And there's a reason why you don't have a lot of teachers of color in public schools. Because if they're going to have to pay to take standardized testing, then they say, well, I might as well go on and be a lawyer. I might as well go on and be a doctor and get paid more money. Why would I go into a public school and be the token black teacher and have to be the one that all the staff come to for answers and have to deal with the students coming to me, the black students coming to me looking for help, and then the white students and the white staff looking to me for the answers, and I'm not getting paid for that job. So that's a whole roundabout way of really kind of talking about the many different systems and how I plan to go ahead and attack it. We will be calling for, in our manifesto, we are having a 2-day back-to-back rap protest, July 11th and 12th. And one of the things in that we'll be doing is we will have a list of demands. And in those demands, we will be talking about what it's going to look like to defund the police and where that money is going to go. My daughter is in elementary school, and Manchester is diverse, but the schools don't look like that. And one of the things we're going to be asking for is to take that money and to seriously recruit teachers of color. There's about 4 classrooms per grade in elementary schools alone. And the school that my daughter goes to, there's only 3 black staff people in the whole school. Not one of them is a black teacher. Not one. And what we're saying is that there should be at the minimum 2 staff of color per grade, 1 being a black teacher. So that is kind of what that is what Power Up. I'm the founder of this organization. I'm just a black mama, and I'm going to take out just because being a black mama wears many hats. I was late to the Power Up demonstration tonight because I had to drop my daughter off. I had to get on this Zoom, and I got to be out here. So I'm gonna take out just. I am a black mama. I could run this world if I had to. I could run this city. I could run this country. And that's why I also say, I coined the phrase, I am white supremacy's worst nightmare. The worst thing that they could have done was to piss off a black mama. And when George Floyd cried out for his mother, the sounds of the alarm of all black mamas went off. And when he cried out, I went into Avenger mode. And it was time for me to put on my cape. And I said, you know what? No more. No more. And I realized that all the times before, the reason why I couldn't get out because I was so concerned about trying to balance my life as a single mom and being an activist. And I realized that the world will never be right if I choose motherhood, if I choose one or the other. And so I just said I'm gonna have to balance the two and I'm gonna have to utilize my village. And so I'm here. White supremacy's worst nightmare. Thank you.
Thank you, Keren. We can